All right, we'll talk about all of that with our panel coming up. We're also talking about the big news this week involving former President Trump and the search warrant executed at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Attorney General Merrick Garland speaking about that situation publicly on Thursday, as we hear now from our Washington bureau.
Newly released court documents show the FBI removed 11 sets of classified records from former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Trump says he did nothing wrong. Here in Washington, House Republicans say they want answers about the FBI's investigation.
The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik claims the DOJ is using the FBI as a political weapon.
President Donald Trump is Joe Biden's most likeliest political opponent in 2024.
Former President Trump says he's being treated unfairly, and many Republicans are following his lead.
The scales of justice should be balanced, and the eyes of justice should be blind.
This is a big, big deal. We don't know the contents of these documents. We believe by two reputable news outlets that we have some kind of nuclear information in there.
Missouri Congressman Emanuel Cleaver and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi say this information doesn't belong to the former president.
There are laws against the improper handling of this material.
The search has sparked a wave of violent threats against the FBI, and Ohio Republican Congressman Mike Turner says that has to stop.
And we condemn any actions of violence against any law enforcement personnel.
Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
All right, a lot of reaction to all this on Wednesday. Congressman Larry Bucshon said the FBI and DOJ still hadn't given the American people an explanation as to why they took the unprecedented step to raid a former president's home. He said they need to do this immediately and said it appeared to be politically motivated until they can prove to us why it's not. Of course, that reaction came before we learned details from the search warrant. So was this picture from Congressman Jim Banks of Fort Wayne, who chairs the Republican Study Committee. This week, he and a group of Republicans met with former President Trump. Among that group, you see there Congresswoman Victoria Spartz and congressional candidate Aaron Houchin. Banks saying, quote, House conservatives are united in standing with President Trump. Well, Indiana's congressional delegation also gathered this week to remember a fallen colleague, Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, who was killed in a crash earlier this month. The governor and other members of Congress among those speaking at her funeral this past week.
I can't think of a memory of Jackie where there wasn't just this positive spirit.
Even as the dark clouds of morning hover over us, they cannot ever obscure the bright beacon of light and hope that Jackie radiated.
Now, Congresswoman Walorski was 58 years old. She was killed in that crash along with two members of her staff and another driver. This week, the governor announced a special election will be held in November to fill the end of her term in Congress. A lot happening in Congress this week. The House taking up the Inflation Reduction Act, and Indiana Senator Todd Young was among a bipartisan group of lawmakers who joined the president this past week for this bill signing at the White House for the CHIPS bill that Senator Young had pushed for to stay competitive with China. I spoke with presidential advisor Mitch Landrieu this week.
You know, the president is always trying to work across the aisle, and he was happy to have bipartisan support in this very important piece of legislation that's going to put America in a place to win the 21st century as it relates to a number of very important things. And this bill, even though it's called the CHIPS Science and Technology Act, it's pretty simple. Everybody knows now after COVID, when they couldn't get their hands on things that they wanted, one of the reasons was because one of the component parts, which is called the microchip, our semiconductor microchip, we couldn't get it because it was made overseas. And everybody said, why do they make stuff overseas? Why don't we make it here? This bill fixes that problem.
All right, coming up next on this week's edition of In Focus, we'll talk with our panel about some of this week's big stories, including the latest on the former president and the business backlash to the abortion bill, and why a former Republican congressional representative is sounding off on Attorney General Todd Rokita's investigation of a local doctor.